Hi, it's Christine Daigle.
I'm Jenna Brown.
I'm Kevin Tumlinson,
Yeah, and
and
JD
that's
is
JD Barker over there
in Greece.
silently.
In Greece,
He's in Greece.
having a nice time. We hope he's having a nice time.
Well, it seems like it. He keeps sending photos. You don't keep
Yeah,
sending photos if you've been kidnapped internationally or
that's
you've been
true.
locked
Or
in
Although
do
I
you?
custody.
don't I don't think we've seen one today, so
Yeah.
perhaps there will
Yeah.
be an intriguing update next week.
Haven't even heard from him
Me
despite
too.
all the text messages that we were sending.
Well, I don't
He-
know what time it is in Greece. There's quite a time difference, so
Oh,
yeah,
that's true. But no, I think it's like,
like 8 or 9 o'clock at night there right
yeah,
now, I
could
think.
be
So
evening right now.
Fair enough.
yeah.
Fair enough.
So I guess I'll be JD and say, Kevin, what's in the news?
Oh, we're gonna jump right into
Oh,
it.
I don't know. Did you have something else you wanted to talk about? We can just
I don't. I
me
don't
neither.
think
I
I do. But
don't.
I do like how one of our two of our news items are connected and they loop back to the interview. So everybody needs to listen for the Easter eggs.
There you go.
Let's do
Interesting.
that.
The
All right.
mystery.
First up, NetGalley launches consumer marketing platform Booktrovert, which does not sound dirty at all. NetGalley's new spin-off Booktrovert will target general readers rather than industry professionals. Publishers can run ebook giveaways, pre-order pushes, swag drops, and more, while harvesting the same analytics NetGalley already supplies to publicists. BookTok and Bookstagram stars are the prime target, yet there's no mobile app, limited social tools, and the NetGalley, quote, pro wall remains in place, meaning creators still can't hit that easy button for advanced copies. The launch of Booktrovert gives NetGalley the opportunity to compete with Amazon's Goodreads. Booktrovert.
I signed up. Did you sign up?
I got the email. I
I
have
ain't
not
signed.
signed up.
Yeah.
I guess I should sign up. I don't know why they're keeping them separate though. Like that doesn't the
Well, because
pro
I
and
think
the
NetGalley is always supposed to be NetGalley is like for like I mean it was always supposed to be an industry thing. Like you had to
yeah.
be like a reviewer and then the line got a little blurred because influencers um
Yeah.
so but there's a lot of people who have small accounts who don't actually qualify even to be like the looser influencer roles on NetGalley. So I guess this is a way to, or they don't want to, they just want to be a reader. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of a way to interact in a way, get copies of books,
Yeah.
cool merch.
I mean, the only time I use NetGalley is when for this show, and only every now and then.
Yeah.
Oh, I
So
I use NetGalley all the time. I think that the last year and a half, my reading exclusively comes from NetGalley at this point. Like it's
oh
just,
wow.
Most of
yeah.
mine does, but it's mostly for the podcast. It's the books we're
Yeah.
having on, we get all the net galleys.
Well,
But
yeah, I mean, here and then just other places where I
yeah.
review. So yeah, it's just like,
Yeah, but
Yeah.
so you can't get ARCs though, right? So that's the difference on Booktrovert. You're not getting the advanced reading copies, is that right?
they give away select copies from what when I went on there and poked around. So they have like a handful of books and they give away a certain amount of copies. So in the
Mm.
same way that Goodreads does. The difference though is like, Goodreads, you go on and you enter those Goodreads giveaway and God knows if you're ever it's like random and
Right.
so people have like whole systems and like to try to figure out that this one, I think it's like just first come, first serve. So if you're active on
Hmm.
there, and I don't know how often they update it, but it seems like they're going to update it at a certain point and it's first come, first serve. You
Wow.
get your free copy. So
Yeah.
All
that's
right.
kind of cool,
Yeah.
I
All
think.
right.
Oh, so okay.
Uh, sounds good. I mean,
Booktrovert.
whatever. Booktrovert.
Like introvert, not like the dirty thing Kevin is thinking.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there's six of one.
Lots of
Uh,
verts out there.
Speaking of verts, TikTok owner ByteDance to shutter Eighth Note Press imprint. TikTok's parent company ByteDance is pulling the plug on its 18-month-old publishing arm, Eighth Note Press. The imprint had bought about 30 novels and inked a splashy print distribution deal with Molly Stern's Zando, but ByteDance has now told authors it is reverting all rights and pulling ebook editions from retailers. The promise of, quote, Book Talk Insider magic never materialized, despite sitting atop the world's biggest book discovery engine. Eighth Note posted, that's a really tough one for me to say. Eighth Note posted a single organic TikTok, ran a few paid ads, and never opened a TikTok shop. Agents say royalty statements are overdue and staff have quietly exited. Always a good sign. Debut writers lost launch momentum. Self-pub converts saw earnings stall, and one agent called the shutdown, quote, wrecking careers.
Yeah.
Wasn't as easy as you thought, was it,
That's
TikTok?
kind of, I know it sounds like very mean, but that is like one of the things always happens in business. And everyone is like, I'll just do it myself. And it's like, listen, like, I'm not saying that publishers and big publishing houses and giant corporations do everything right, but it is not as easy as it appears to just launch an imprint. And I think that, it's kind of interesting because you see this a lot in the indie world where you see a
Yeah.
lot of small presses
Yeah.
bubble up, and they always start with really good intentions.
Yeah.
They want to,
And
help lift voices and,
occasionally they have decent business models, but
yeah.
there's always more than you anticipated. I just talked
Yeah.
with an author yesterday. Um, we have a mutual friend who started a small press and was doing okay with it. And it just got to a point where he couldn't maintain it anymore. And so, you
Yeah.
know, he shut it down. The problem is he kind of ghosted all the authors. Like he just stopped responding to emails and stuff.
Yeah.
And now he's finally kind of getting back to them and filling them in, paying them back royalties and things like that. But now they're left with, well, what do we do from here?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's a different model to go self-publish straight out. So that's
Right.
that's why a lot of them have been reaching out to me to kind of ask my advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
kind of surprised about TikTok though, because I mean, I was like, when they started, I'm like, that makes sense. They're TikTok. Everyone has a TikTok shop for their books. They
Yeah,
could do their own and push it on the algorithm. So I don't understand why they never opened their own
it's
the
TikTok
clear that they
shop.
didn't consult anyone. Like
Yeah.
it looks like
no.
they thought just the power of the name will be enough to make this successful. They didn't talk to anybody about what they should do
Yeah.
beyond because
I think that it probably has to do with it's actually a completely different business model. And you see this a lot. When I was a business consultant, like the first thing I would tell people that I started to work with, like that, 'cause it's the same way we always ask, what's your advice to new writers? My advice to new business owners was always get used to failure. Get
Yeah.
used to failing because you're gonna fail at everything for a while. And the reason I think a lot of small presses ghost people is because they feel that shame of failure. Like I tried something, I had really noble intentions, I couldn't do it, and then they're
yeah.
ashamed of it and
Yeah.
they can't, that's very difficult for people to get over. But as far as TikTok goes, I mean, running an app and running a publishing house are two completely different beasts. Like they're
Yes.
business is not just like, oh, I can run business X, and that means that you can run, business JKLMNOP. It just doesn't work like that. You cannot do it. So
Ironically, there is a small press called like JKLMOP, I think,
I'm sure
something like
there
that.
is.
Uh,
You know, the thing is, I thought this was pretty exciting when it came out
Yeah.
because there's always a chance when you're an early adopter. If something goes really right and you're on it first, like when Kindle came out and
yeah.
Yeah.
other things, that it's going to be really big. So I don't know. I feel bad for
Well,
this, but I always thought there
that's
was a possibility
yeah.
it could really
Yeah.
uplift some authors.
That's why I think it was
Unfortunate.
probably a
Yeah.
good idea for these folks to jump in, take the risk,
Yeah.
And the troublesome thing is that they could have lost the books, tied up in some sort of
Yeah.
rights battle, but sounds like ByteDance is giving them all those rights back.
Yeah.
Now they
Yeah.
just have to figure out a new path. The bridge may be burned for them to take this maybe to another publisher. So they might have to just look at how do I self-publish this,
Yeah.
and do this myself. But you never know. Sometimes these publishers will buy back existing back catalogs despite,
Sometimes.
how they did or didn't do.
Yeah.
So it's always good to have these things in your back pocket.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all right. Speaking of back pocket, see, yeah, this is how I segue. Speaking of blank, XYZ that has nothing to do with blank. These two, there's two stories here. We're gonna go through two stories.
Yes.
Two
So
stories.
bear
Okay.
with
Not
us.
allowed to talk for two stories,
They're
Christine.
Got it.
related. They're
Zips.
related. All right. So, judge in Anthropic case rules that training AI on copyright books without permission is fair use. I'll go through this first. All right. So the judge in the Anthropic case handled. Excuse me. Let me start that again. The judge in the Anthropic case handed out a split decision. He said using lawfully purchased books to train the Claude LLM is, quote, exceedingly transformative and therefore permitted under U.S. fair use doctrine. But he blasted the company for stockpiling 7 million pirated ebooks, downloading stolen copies to dodge, quote, legal/business slog, then keeping them is inherently redeemably infringing. Oh, so many words for me to have to pronounce.
Hmm.
Claude doesn't spit back memorized text, so the ruling addresses inputs only. The judge repeatedly stressed it should not be read as a blanket green light for LLMs that regurgitate copyrighted prose. Now, quick on the heels of that, the very next day, this story came out. Meta wins blockbuster AI copyright case, but there's a catch. A judge ruled that training generative AI models on copyrighted material is fair use in the case of 13 books. In the case of 13 books, given the absence of proven market harm. However, the judge took pains to stress that this ruling was based on the specific set of facts in this case, leaving the door open for other authors to sue Meta for copyright infringement in the future. Market dilution as AI works flood the market could be used as a grounds for a future lawsuit. I have
Yeah.
opinions.
That
We
was a
will
really
discuss.
the meta one was really interesting because the judge is like, I have to give you this decision, but
Yeah,
was lamenting the decision and was almost like, you made the wrong argument. If
yeah.
you would have argued, this market dilution, I don't know, something else. He was like,
I'm going to
something
tell
else, I
you.
could have given you a different answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can take this for what it's worth, but my professional opinion is they don't have a leg to stand on with the
Yeah.
market dilution argument. They're never going to win that,
Yeah.
because it's not. That would effectively be saying it's not fair that they're able to put out more books than I am. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
not going to fly as
Yeah.
an IP argument.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It
this
So,
was
whole
interesting.
AI legal battle is quite interesting. I mean, I guess like at this point, it's very hard to say what would even happen if they said, well, you're not allowed to train your LLM on those pirated books. Um,
yeah,
I don't I don't know enough about LLMs. Like I don't know if the ones that are in question are the ones that like are the foundation for all the other models, or if people can build LLMs on their own. Like I don't actually know how that works. I don't know where where that comes from, or how that works, but
yeah.
so I guess like the thing is like if you punish one company, then if someone else used that mod, like it just feels like it's so it's like trying to get like spilled water out of the ocean. I don't
Yeah.
know how you collect it. I don't know how you separate it.
Well,
And
it,
I don't know that that makes it right. I just don't know.
it's
I don't,
interesting. The stuff that they started bringing to the case, and some of it kind of came late, which was part of the problem, and it was just underdeveloped, right? They even called it out. It's like this is you did this too late in the process. You didn't develop this argument enough. But there's some questionable stuff. One of those is Meta. They're going after them for letting the content that they use to train get back out in the world via torrent. And the way I'm reading it is they used torrent to download all those books, and the way torrent works is, you leave that stuff there so that someone else can also download it. Like
Yeah.
you become a file server for that. So that's where I think they're going after Meta. They could have a case there on the distribution side, but they tried to do something similar with Anthropic and the central library of files, and that one I can tell you is going nowhere fast because they're not distributing. They're trying to make the argument that Anthropic is distributing by having all these files on a server, but they're not. The server's not publicly available. No one can download the files, so then it's not distribution by any definition of the law. So that one I think is going to bomb. But the one about torrents could actually make an impact. But neither of those things has anything at all to do with whether or not these companies can use the content to train AI.
Right.
Yeah.
It's only about the copyright violation based on distribution.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's really weird and interesting. And I suspect that a lot of the cases that we see today in 100 years, if humanity hasn't managed to completely eradicate itself off the planet and or the robots have not taken over, I do think that it's going to be interesting and set some precedent for law that has to deal with like a lot of this digital world because we don't, right now we're used to dealing with the physical and a lot of our laws are written for this physical world. We don't really have laws for the digital world and we're moving increasingly towards that,
yeah,
digital money, digital data.
yeah.
It's just
I
it's
I don't
very
think
interesting.
people don't realize how new the concept of intellectual property is.
Yeah.
The reason we're having all these weird trials and problems and conundrums is because the entire concept is just foreign to us. It didn't exist until I don't know what 80 years ago, something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
that whole concept of you could steal some. I mean, if you look at like the works of Shakespeare, they were stolen left and right. People would just copy the play, go do it. No credit, no money, no anything
Yeah.
going back to.
But it was
Uh,
harder. I think that's why, it was harder to know that it was being done,
yeah,
right? I mean, like in Shakespeare's time, Shakespeare would have to hope that like, some friend of his was just riding through the right town on the right horse at the right time and happened to see, like, oh, hey, that's my buddy's play.
yeah,
But it's really hard to like pinpoint that, even in like the 80s and before the internet, the 90s, like, you could buy a book and like pass it around to your friends, but like only one person at a time could read that actual book, So like the way information was shared was just so much slower and so much different. And then again, it just even in a bookstore, even back then, like to find someone who had taken an idea that you had, like the odds of someone stumbling on that, it was very hard to detect and very hard to find. And now it's
yeah,
very easy, right? If you think if you want to check for plagiarism, like you can go to 1,000 websites and like take an excerpt and
yeah.
plug it in and find it. So
I
it's
mean, on that note, though, the real gist of these two stories and these two cases is that the training part falls under fair use under existing copyright law. The Because it's transformative, this is the same. I was making this argument all along that this isn't plagiarism. You can't label this plagiarism because they're not producing the exact work. If they do, you've got a clear case. It's
Yeah.
easy. We've already got law. So yeah,
I
I
know
don't
that's
personally want to
weird.
see them make that practice illegal because I think it's going to bite every one of us in the butt in one way or another. If
Yeah,
you,
similar
because
writing would be really
right,
that that's a line that gets really hard. I just get really it's the taking it for free that like I think really just gets at everyone, right? Stealing the
yeah,
books because a lot of these companies like Silicon Valley has billions of dollars running through it right now. Like you couldn't just pay Like you couldn't have just paid, and not that, that makes it any better if they purchase your book and then use it to train a large language model, but I guess it's just like an extra FU to just like steal it from a pirate site. Like, I don't, it
Right.
just,
And Zuckerberg signed off on it. That's the really
yeah,
annoying part. It's like, yeah, this is illegal. Let's do it.
Ugh.
I
Uh,
know. I guess that's what it is. It's the blatant,
yeah,
just the blatant believing that they're above the law. I think that seems to be the thing that really just gets people.
yeah.
They'd be irritated, I think, outside of that, but it would be harder to be as irritated than just having someone smack you in the face.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Kevin Thomas, and it seems to me like you might need a little help. Maybe hand off all that stuff that's keeping you from writing. At Author Anchor, we connect authors with skilled, affordable virtual assistants trained specifically for the publishing world. Your personal VA handles everything from book production to marketing and social media, freeing you up to focus on what matters most, your writing. Book a discovery call today and we'll find that perfect VA for you. Plus, mention the Writers Inc. podcast and you'll get $50 off your first month. Visit authoranchor.com and get matched with your personal VA so you can just write. Well, look, speaking of AI, Christine, who are we chatting with today?
Up this week, it's Ewan Morrison. Ewan is an author, a culture critic, a director, and a screenwriter. He has published numerous amounts of novels and short story collections, and his novel Nina X won the Satire Society Literary Award. So here he is, Ewan Morrison. Okay, Ewan Morrison, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Christine, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm excited to talk to you again. I think you were my second or third interview when I
Do you
joined
know,
Writers Inc.
this might be one of the strangest things as well, because I showed you a copy of this book 3 or 4 years ago. So this might be one of these examples of you've actually given inspiration and backup to a writer to then help them finish the book that you then ask them questions about.
There you go. Well, it came full circle somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this one was, it was a hard book to write because it's very emotionally intense. And those little bits of encouragement at the start really helped,
Well,
actually. So
thank you.
thank you for that.
I'm so excited to see it's releasing in the UK and in the US.
hmm
Yeah, so I think the first book you were on here with was How to Survive Everything.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
this book is for Emma.
That's right. Yeah.
And I'm super excited. We've been chatting about this a little bit online because I think I told you I
Mm.
work in brain computer interfaces as part of my job. So I'm
She
excited
works
to
the
talk
enemy.
about. Well, no, I don't put AI in anybody's brains. I just
Yeah.
they just can use the headsets to
The
control their
helmets,
environment.
yeah, because about 50% of the BCI experiments are to do with neural mapping non-invasively. Yeah,
That's what I do. Yeah.
so
So
that
for kids with
that's what you're
neuromotor
involved in.
disorders who can't talk or
Yeah,
move,
yeah.
then they can,
Mm, mm, mm.
turn on their light switches or their music or whatever. So we're not emitting anything into the brain, just reading brain
Yeah.
signals, which is very
That's,
different than what you're talking about.
oh yeah, no, I think that's probably the way to go. I think that'll be the way it has to go. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Mm.
I'm always a fan of external technology. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, don't implant stuff in your body, but that's just my personal opinion.
No, I think that's a really wise idea, because how do you do the experiments, the invasive experiments on humans?
Yeah.
I mean, you're taking huge risks there already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And I don't know
and
how you upgrade when it's planted in your head, but that's a whole, I don't know, someone smarter than me can. I
yeah.
don't do the technology, I just use it for function. So
Mm.
let's talk about For Emma.
Okay, so
No Bond. Yeah, tell me about it.
okay, so just in terms of a story, someone asked me, recently, like, what's the simplest way you could tell the story? And I thought, well, hold on. The simplest way is to go back to like a 19th century version of the story. So it would be a man is haunted by the ghost of his daughter, who
Yes.
tells him how to kill the man who killed her. So, I mean, that's really what the story is, but it's set in times of modern technology. So you have a character, Josh, who's a father who's recently lost his daughter, Emma. And he lost her to a brain chip experiment because she was working in Silicon Valley and with invasive brain chip technology, and it killed her. And the company hushed it up in cahoots with bigger organizations, maybe even government. So it's later he's in a state of bereavement, and he starts hearing her voice in his head, and she's giving him clues as to what actually happened to her. He's piecing it together, and gradually he realizes he's only got one thing left to live for, and that's to kill the CEO of the big tech corporation who effectively killed his daughter by implanting her with this technology. So the story is really the 30 days in his life, which he considers to be the last 30 days of his life, where he's planning to do a suicide bombing, a suicide homicide, they're called.
Yeah.
Or as he would say, to take this son of a gun out with me when I go. So it's like a countdown novel, and all the time, he's having to grapple with his daughter's voice in his head, and sometimes she's cheeky, sometimes she's cryptic, sometimes she's like a very distant ghost who doesn't seem to be quite communicating with him properly, and he's never sure whether it's just a delusion of a bereaved person, or whether it's a supernatural thing, or whether it's maybe even something to do with the technology that killed her.
Yeah. And it's just such an interesting concept. And there's so much that is timely, shall we say, for what is going on right now. What made you want to explore grief through this technology lens?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think what makes us want to, being a man in my 50s, I've come across quite a lot of loss over the last 7 or 8 years. We lose people, parents, partners, etc. And I got the feeling that we're not very good at grief anymore. I mean, you see examples of that today with people using grief bots, apps and AI that stands in for your deceased partner or your parent. So, they like upload themselves, or they upload videos of themselves and then continue as an AI avatar of themselves after death.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to help you grieving. So these technologies were kicking about when I started writing it, and they've grown massively since then. And so I was just thinking about a sort of AI ghost, as it were, or how we use these technologies to get rid of things that make us feel uncomfortable, like grief and loss. And also, in terms of grief, when I lost my father, I was one of the 18% of people who have a hallucination. It was an audio and a sensory hallucination. I didn't see him or anything, but I definitely felt that I heard his voice after he was dead, and I had a sense that I woke one morning in fright, feeling that he was sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at me. Of course, who knows what these things are? Probably hallucinations, probably the mind's just playing tricks on you, But I just felt I had a kind of inroad into what it might be like to be haunted in your grief, and to actually want the voice that you hear to stay with you. So that's part of what Josh does, is he keeps talking to Emma and recording messages for Emma, which is why it's called For Emma, and of course for everything he does for Emma, including planning to kill the man who killed her. So yeah, it was on the one hand, it was an experience of grief that I've been through myself, in the sense that we're not very good at bereavement anymore. We've become quite alienated from it. And on the other hand, the technologies that we use to try to cure bereavement, cure death, and the promise of transhumanism and tech optimism is that we'll end all human suffering. We'll find a cure for poverty and sickness through the super intelligent computer that we will invent. We'll extend our human lives, and we'll colonize the stars. These great big dreams that come wrapped up in the tech utopian mindset. I wanted to explore all of those, and to see how Emma could become seduced by these big tech fantasies, if you like, and how that would impact on her life. Ultimately she bought into it to the point where she was willing to have the technology inserted into her body, and it ended up
Yeah.
killing her. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. And I think, like, do you think that grief is being changed by technology? Like you say, we don't know how to grieve. So how we
Mm.
um, remember people, is that still the same? Is that evolved? Is it less human? Like, what do you think about that?
Well, I think there's two aspects to it. There's managerialism, modern managerialism, and
Mhm.
then there's the use of technology to assist in the managerial aspect of it. I mean, I think we've come to see, I think probably since the 1950s or 60s, and there's a lot of it's to do with American ideology, American positivity, the self-esteem movement, positive psychology.
Yeah.
We tend to try to hide away from life's darker aspects and to sort of manage them out of existence. So another thing as well, I think, with the loss of religion in most families or most social settings, you end up with these strange kind of hybrid humanist funerals that we have. And there's a little bit in the book where the ghost of Emma is talking to her dad as he's sitting there hungover at her own funeral, at her cremation ceremony, and she's commenting on what everyone's wearing, and she's saying, "Dad, don't look at the coffin because that's just a piece of meat in there. It's not me. I'm in your head now." And she's commenting on how the speech that's read at this humanist celebrant ceremony reads like her LinkedIn profile,
Mhm.
and like she's saying, "Oh God, it's my LinkedIn profile meets my dating profile," loves furry toys and anime at the weekend, and it's so there's a commentary in the book there on how we've kind of banalized
Yeah.
this epic thing, which is the loss of someone, and
Yeah.
we've kind of turned it into a horrible thing that we have to manage out of existence. And I think the prime example of that comes with these grief bots, or the modern managerial solution to mourning, if you like. And the problem with talking to the dead through an AI avatar, and this is technology as well, which was invented for pop stars that keep on living afterwards. So you got
Right.
ABBA's back on tour.
Yeah.
Who else is there? Oh goodness me, there's so many. Kiss, I think, are back on tour as an AI avatar of themselves. Ronnie James Dio, lots of Elvis, of course. Yeah,
Of
and
course.
and Michael Jackson. So they live on as avatars. So the idea that the technology is made available to you now, so you can keep talking to your
Yeah.
lost loved one, your mother, or your father, your grandfather, whatever. The problem with it is, well, it's twofold. It keeps you trapped in the first stage of grief, which
Mhm.
is the denial stage, and there's
Yeah.
five stages you've got to go through. You got to go through the anger and the
Yes.
negotiation and this sort of reconciliation with the acceptance of
Right.
loss. So if you get stuck in stage one with the technology, and the other aspect of it that's just not right is that all of these large language models only get 70% of everything right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you're kind of talking to 70% of your mum,
Yeah.
you know, and she's going to say stuff just like a large language model or chat GBT. They use fluff and they fill in sentences with like
Mhm.
banalities.
Mhm.
Um, and also an AI version of your mum's not going to know all of the intimate details. She's not going to know that, it's not going to know that your real mum called you Smungle Bum and used to, sing you a particular song from the Scottish Highlands. The AI is going to get a shallow scraping of who that person was. So yeah, I guess we're we're so terrified of death that we try to micromanage it and we try to use technology to replace it.
Yeah. I don't know what I think about these AI grief bots and this digital mortality and I guess memory preservation.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I think like you say, it kind of keeps you stuck
mm,
in that stage and you're not really feeling or dealing with your grief. I don't think less feeling is necessarily a good thing.
Oh, well, there's extraordinary processes that people go through when they're grieving.
Yeah.
Very physical, like when I lost my father, I was like, everyone said, "Oh, you're so cool and calm, and you've been so amazing at organizing everything." And then, like 2 weeks later, I'm like, I have to wear his clothes. Like literally, I have to wear his clothes. I don't know where that came from. We were throwing his clothes out, and I'm like, that coat, I have to wear that for a month.
Yeah.
Something told me I had to, something irrational. And I did also go to pieces as well, in the months that followed. It's important. It's important, I think, that we do that.
Yeah.
We don't have those rituals anymore, those ancient rituals that, like cutting your clothing or cutting your skin was one among, many tribes and peoples, that you would make a cut that would take a year to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And the healing of the cut would symbolize and manifest the mourning you were going through. So after the year, when the cut was healed, you could then say goodbye to your relative.
Yeah.
It's kind of poetic and profound, but I mean, there's real substance to it, I think.
Right. And like when you used to have mourning clothes, you'd wear black for a year.
Right,
Or those
exactly.
type of things. Yeah.
Yeah, and also part of the mourning clothes, wearing black mourning for a year, wearing the veil, it's telling people, don't bother me with with the banality of everyday stuff, because I'm up here and questions about mortality and loss and the stars and the planets and does God exist or not? Has life got a purpose? I don't want to hear about who ate the cheese
Right.
in the fridge or like what's the top pop song at the moment. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
So I think we have to respect that desire to engage with the transcendent that comes after
Yeah.
an experience of death.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do wonder, even outside of grief, like how is technology changing how we socialize, how we feel? I read an article you wrote that was in Psychology Today. Are the systems we have created now controlling us? Where you're talking about this systems oriented worldview, which has led to distortions and impoverished experiences of life. Like, have we lost empathy? Have we lost our sense of interconnectedness? And is it just going to get worse? I would love to hear your opinions on that.
Is it going to get worse? Well, I mean, I think what's happened is just because of the evolution of technology and managerialism, the two things go hand in hand. So things get reduced to systems. It alarms me when I hear people talk about their body just in terms of systems, systems theory, my respiratory system, my cardiovascular system, my pituitary hypothalamic system, whatever. It's kind of all this kind of doctor speak has entered into our daily lives. And we start to see emotional regulation as part of a system as well. And we take SSRIs for that, antidepressants or beta blockers. So that piece in Psychology Today, I was just talking about like how there are 11 systems in the body, and if we start wearing a digital tracker that gives information back to the corporations about our systems,
Yeah.
we're turning ourselves into systems data, and we're starting to see ourselves as a series of systems with problems that can be solved mechanistically, managerially. And we're so far removed from this inhabiting our own bodies, inhabiting our own relationships. I mean, there's the thing that technology does. It starts off as I always think of it as like a wedge,
Yeah.
a wedge gets driven down. So it starts off as a novelty, and then as the wedge gets driven in, the novelty turns into acceptance and then addiction. You become addicted to the technology, and then it's intermediating between you and other people, and then the final stage, it's replacing the contact with people. So you could see that with it starts off with phones and internet dating, and then people, they can't date anymore without an algorithm sorting out who their dates are going to be, and then finally they give that up completely and just have an AI partner instead. So I mean we can see this is actually happening. People are choosing to do it. So it's a kind of, the wedge is the kind of human replacement wedge.
Mhm.
The technology starts off as a novelty, and we end up dependent on it, and then it replaces
Yeah.
human contact. Okay, your last part of your question, what can we do about it? I think the first thing to do is be aware that it's a temptation and a danger, and that there is a sort of inner logic to the development of technology. I think part of my goal is to sort of try to destroy some of the myths about technology that are flying around. No one more than Elon Musk, he perpetuates the myths more than anybody. But all of Silicon Valley partakes of the whole thing, and this is the sort of the salvation transcendence agenda that okay, what we need to create this AI super intelligence that's going to solve all of our problems is for everyone to be reduced to data.
Yeah.
So you give us all of your health data, all of your phone calls, all of your emails, all your books, all your music, everything. We'll turn that all into data. We'll stuff it into this huge computer, and boom, it will emerge as a super intelligence. I think for me, I'm forever punching holes in that idea, because it's the alibi for
Yeah.
stealing all this stuff, but it's a myth and a lie at the same time. We're not going to get AI super intelligence from large language models.
No.
So that's part of, I guess you could call me a decelerationist, or
Yeah.
what Musk and his Muskites would call a doomer.
Yeah. No,
Because
I like that a lot, because I think I like what you're saying. Don't get reduced to data. Because I work in the school system, and the socialization, the way that kids interacted with each other and with adults before and after the pandemic, I will tell you, is different. Like, it's very, kids are, they they don't have that, they missed out on years of formative social interaction. So
Yeah.
there's less politeness and consideration, more violence.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been there a long time. Oh gosh, I've been doing this job. I've been in the school system 12 years. And when I started, the before and the now, in terms of just people being for themselves versus connected, is so different. And I find these trash TV shows fascinating, where they do this blind dating as just a psychological exercise. You have all these people flocking in who are like, "Well, I can't date because of apps," and they come to sit in a room in the dark with no technology for weeks, and they're like bawling and like finally connecting with someone for probably the first years in their lives. And like, I don't think it's about this. It's about you just being disconnected as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know, get outside, go out for dinner, have a conversation with someone without your phone. I think that's the cure. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. It's like we've worked out, or like people like Jonathan Haidt have done a lot of work on trying to get phones out of schools. But
Yeah.
I think we do also have to just try to get them out of our lives, full stop, or within specific areas. It's just that thing about giving quality time to people and just saying no. I mean, everyone knows a family who can't even have a meal anymore without everyone checking their phone. They've got their their little beep noises turned on, so every time someone interacts with them, they've got to pick their phone up again. I mean, it's an endless onslaught, really, but we just have to try to prioritize ourselves and not get sucked into it, because these things are, as we've seen with the studies on exactly how Facebook and Instagram organize their algorithms for addiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
We should really know that these things are rigged,
Yes.
to keep us on there
To
for as
keep you
long as
on there.
possible.
And they get more and more extreme to keep you on there, and they radicalize your thinking, but that's a whole other podcast. So.
Oh, sure. I mean, no, indeed. But I mean, I think just the social isolation aspect of the whole thing, the lack of
Yeah.
development of real social skills.
Yeah.
In Japan, there's this generation of kids now, Gen Z, called the hikikomori, who just, decide they want to live alone and just have their technology. So everything around them is mediated by their technology. They don't even want to work. They'll only do digital work from their screens. They find it it's like a post-COVID thing.
Yeah.
It's like they never really came out of lockdown.
Yeah.
And so they're just using technology for everything, and it's tragic, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a living example of exactly what happens when you let technology replace everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think it's going to threaten our careers as writers? This is a writers podcast. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I was, yes, hugely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think AI can write good books. I think a publishing house could probably get rid of its writers and use interns and AI to churn out really low level quality books. But it's up to the consumer, really. I mean,
Right.
does the consumer want that? But and again, there's like book design, book layout, all these things can be done with relatively amateur people using AI. So why have all that big staff in a publishing house when you can use AI to do that? And of course, there's the thing we're all up in arms about over the last few days, which is we've discovered that Meta,
LibGen. Yeah.
Meta sucked up 7.5 million
Yeah.
of our books. 3 of
Yeah.
mine.
That one's
Yeah.
in there. I
It
can see in
is.
the background. I checked. I'm like, oh, there it is. Yeah, they pirated it and sold it to Meta, and that's good. Or not sold. Free. Gave it freely to Meta.
Give
Yeah,
it
your books
free.
are all in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 of them and 4 of my wife's film scripts as
Oh
well.
boy.
So that's it's a question really what we're going to do about it is the main thing. I mean, we can go through the terrible thing about writers and artists. We love waving the flag of outrage, and then we're really terrible at actually sitting down and doing something about it. You know, we can be sanctimoniously victims of like, oh, the terrible system. We hate the system, and then we'll do nothing about the system. So,
Right.
so we have to take legal stands against these companies like Meta. I think Meta's got a big target on its ass just now after this, and there will be lawsuits. It's whether we can get like 1,000 people or 10,000 people together under the flag of, say, Society of Authors, whatever. That then becomes a big singular lawsuit. I think that would be better than individuals trying to.
Yeah, there's one you can join right
attack the
now.
beast.
It's what is it? Cadre versus Meta. Maybe we can find the link and drop it in. You can join that
That would be
that
great.
class action.
Yeah. No, I would.
That might be a US only. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure.
Okay, well, we're
how
certainly in
places
discussions
happen.
over here on how to do that in the UK.
Yeah.
And I think that really has to happen.
Yeah.
But it's not so much that AI can write books in the style of. AI is very poor at doing any creative work.
Yeah.
It's good at writing synopsis.
Yeah.
It's good at writing really, really bad poetry, like landmark cards,
Yeah.
It's very limited, but it just depends on the quality thresholds the industry wants to have.
You're right. It's going to be consumer driven, right? So what are people willing to read? I was curious with it, so I tried to get it to write something in the style of Terry Pratchett. And it did in terms of like syntax, but it wasn't funny. So I'm like,
no,
well,
it couldn't possibly be.
no.
Yeah. Like, and another thing, if you ask it to write in the style of Terry Pratchett, it'll find some Terry Pratchett type stories.
Yeah.
And it will just rip off little bits of them.
Right.
And it might even stupidly mention Terry Pratchett as well in the thing. as well.
Oh, it's wild times. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think we have to make a stand here. I think music's going to be hit really hard. I was horrified to find that I really liked a song that had been made by Suno.
AI.
Yeah, it came onto my feed and I was like, oh, wow, is that the new song by Sleep Token? It's like, no, it's an AI version based on some sheet music with AI vocals and AI drums and AI guitars and everything. And I was like, God, what the AI, what large language models can't do in literature, they seem to be able to do better in music. So again, I worry for the music industry.
Yeah. It's probably easier to write something cohesive that's short and hooky than.
Yeah, no, I think so.
Yeah.
And I think the main thing, again, it goes back to Generation Z and Generation A, is it's that it's like, are you going to spend 4 years learning to play the guitar like Cobain or Hendrix, or are you just going to go to Suno and type in "make me a song like Cobain and Hendrix"? So all that training and all that self-discipline and all that sort of passion and struggling with the form, you're offered a way to short circuit that. So I imagine that some people will not now
Not do
go through the
that.
process of all that learning. And I think it'd be the same for writing as well. Certainly, we're seeing this with the art of writing essays.
Yeah.
In a university and further education. What a mess! Oh dear! And I don't, and really, I don't think that Silicon Valley cares a damn about culture, because I don't think the mindset there is
No.
trained to value culture. Do you?
No, I think here's this thing we're gonna hype and make a lot of money on and then move on to the next thing. That seems to be Silicon Valley. Remember NFTs? This is the thing and you got to get in on the thing, and then they've moved on. So no, I think it's capitalism, honestly. I don't think it's human driven or considered really at all. But
Do you know, it's like one of these things. It's like, we promised you super intelligent God that was gonna, and what we'll give you instead is AI military patrol dogs in your street.
yes.
It's like, oh, all right, well, that wasn't quite what you promised us, guys.
Yes. Yeah, and they look cute, so I guess that's fine.
Those cute military surveillance dogs. Yeah, I know they dress them up in furry outfits to do little dances on YouTube, so you accept them.
Exactly. That's dangerous.
Very dangerous.
So you are always on social issues. That's always in your work. That's always present. Let's look at the future. We've got AI and technology going on. What other societal shifts or crises do you think that fiction writers should be preparing for, or are you interested in writing? I would love to hear about that.
Oh, I'm really concerned by the growth of the surveillance state through technology. So this is taking us back to 1984.
Yeah,
and a lot of the projections that we were having then, Brave New World, all the classic sci-fi, really, Fahrenheit 451. So we're seeing the real. See, I've got this theory that's kind of interesting, which is that sci-fi has had such an impact throughout the 20th century that all the technologists read the sci-fi, and now they've taken all the bad ideas from sci-fi and tried to manifest them as real. So you get the growth of, like Musk, for example. He's always talking about how he read The Moon's a Harsh Mistress by Heinlein and Isaac Asimov, and how he got all these great ideas from sci-fi. But you're they've actually got a system in Holland now of pre-crime assessment, which is facial recognition thing where they're judging whether you might commit a crime in future. And I'm like, hold on, that's Philip K. Dick's Minority Report.
Very Minority Report right there.
It's Minority Report. So I think we live in a time of science fiction.
Yeah.
So as a writer who's concerned with social issues, even by doing realism and just looking at the real a few years down the line, it turns out like science fiction, because we're just talking about the impact that technology's having on us. My big one is just this fear that of like the emergence of surveillance states.
Yeah.
I think that's at the end of the day, I'm the child of some hippies. I believe in freedom, and autonomy and bodily autonomy and freedom of movement, freedom of speech, and all these old things from the late 60s. These are important. And the idea of like a perfectly managed, controlled city or state, or like a state that's made up of a series of controlled cities where everything you do is monitored and you're rewarded for your obedience to that. All the technologies are already in place for that. There's 6 experimental cities in China that are already doing this, the social credit system. And so that concerns me going forward, and it actually makes me question the role of artists and the possibility of culture surviving. Damn it! Actually, I think we're in a time where culture is really in jeopardy, and it's not clear that the arts are necessarily going to be necessary in a society where we move forward towards total managerialism, total control, and total surveillance. Because in those states, really, humans just become managed entities that eat, sorry to swear, but eat shit and work and sleep, you know?
Yeah.
And culture just becomes a sort of form of passive entertainment to make sure that we don't rebel, you know? We're just kept distracted by culture. So yeah, I'm concerned that the role of the arts is diminishing as we move towards total control societies.
So
Yeah.
maybe on the flip side, it's going to be more important to keep writing and keep creating art as a form of rebellion and resistance. I don't know.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, I think I'm stuck with that, really. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's that thing in the morning. It's like, you know, you go onto social media and you're like, oh, another growth of the totalizing surveillance state has just happened somewhere else. And you go, I've got to tell people about it. I got to warn them. And then, you know, you do get that surge where you're like, culture has to survive. It has to. We got to fight for it.
Yeah.
But it's a daily slog, though. You know, we're just somehow technology and the control of humans seem to have completely intermeshed with each other. And so with technological progress, we see more and more managerial control of our lives.
Yeah.
It does feel like that, right?
Yeah, for sure. And you know, I always hope that everything's cyclical. So, well, if things swing that way, maybe they will swing back again. And also, you know, 1950s sci-fi stories are not manuals.
Right, indeed. They should have them on the cover. This is not an instruction manual for the future.
So I guess, you know, it's always fabulous talking to you, but we're running out of time. So just in closing, I guess, as we're going forward with these technologies into the futures, what would you say for writers right now, going into this technology and these surveillance states? What would you want to say?
I would say just hoard all the good stuff from the past, all the great writing that we've had in the past. Read it in the primary sources, fall in love with it, find the great train tracks that connect all the writers together, you know, the big ideas, and really explore them. And just get fired up that there is a purpose, I think, to fiction alone. You know, fiction has this unique ability to take things that we experience and abstract them, or to take an abstract idea that we live with and to manifest it into real human beings. I mean, someone intelligently said, maybe it was Milan Kundera, that you've got all these different disciplines. You got the sciences, you've got psychology, you've got sociology, and then you've got music and poetry, you know, and art, and that somehow the novel is all of these things all squished together into a ball that makes sense. Also, a novel, I think, is like it's like a person that you know. So you know someone intimately. I've got all these friends who are just on the bookshelves behind there. You know, some of them are bad and evil people, like Raskolnikov from Crime and Punishment. Other people are people I fell in love with, like Sabina from The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. You know, I think it's important for us to get beyond ourselves and our tiny focus on our little managed lives, and to be able to look at the lives of others that exist in these wonderful forms. So I think that there's a reason for us to be writing novels, and it's to do with feeling more, having more empathy with people, and be able to imagine ourselves in situations we've never lived through as well.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you so much for giving me that boost of encouragement with this difficult, heart-rending book that I'm glad is finally coming out into the world, because it's like having a dark ghost that lives with you. Like, go on to the shelves now. Leave me alone.
I'm so excited that everyone is going to get to read this book. So, For Emma will be out now as soon as this comes out. So
fantastic. Thank you so much.
Cheers. I always feel smarter after talking to Ewan because he's a very deep thinker.
I mean, he gave you full credit for the book. So,
oh my God, that was so nice. I was like, I did nothing other than, you know, he ran the idea by me. I'm like, that sounds great. You should write that. That was like my own.
Sometimes that's all you need to hear, Christine. Sometimes that's all you need to hear.
Well, I really like how he thought about this. He knew he wanted to do this story about AI, but went back to what would be the simplest way to tell this story. If this was a 19th century ghost story
Yeah.
where the daughter's ghost tells her father how to find her killer, how did I bring that into modern technology? And I just thought that was so smart because we tend to sometimes overcomplicate stories and plots unnecessarily.
So, okay, I haven't, confession, I haven't read the book. Yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm going to read it because it sounded great. But
Yeah.
my question is this: does he leave that whole scenario ambiguous enough that that we, the reader, never know if this is technology or
Oh no,
a
it's that
psychotic
we
break?
know that she was brain chipped. She was
But
into
but
it.
but
So
the father's hearing her voice, and
yeah.
I didn't hear him explain how that was happening. So does
Yeah.
he leave that like vague through the whole book? You don't
Uh,
want to spoil it. I
no,
get
I don't
it,
want to spoil it. So
but
I'm gonna have to read it and see.
are we
It's
left?
good.
It sounds then like he does, like he leaves that open.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
that's all I cared about. I'm like, well, that would be brilliant if he did that. If he didn't do that, it's no less brilliant. It's just not as fun.
Yeah. No, it's very cool. But
Doesn't
I
like
like that
answers.
idea because that was got me thinking about, when I'm thinking about next books, and
Mhm.
I tend to overcomplicate plot sometimes or ideas.
Oh
I mean,
man.
it's
Yeah,
like, oh, it needs to be this and this. I'm like, oh, I love that. What would this be as like, an early story, an Edgar Allan Poe story or something? And how do we
yeah, it's a cool idea.
modernize that? I think
Yeah.
that's really, really cool.
Yeah,
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 you
Um,
always need that person in your life who just goes, well, why don't they just do this? And then you're like,
because it didn't.
right.
Okay, shut up.
Right. Yeah.
Buy my
yeah.
book. Yeah.
Would you guys upload your consciousness?
Yes. Now,
I don't know.
caveat. I wouldn't in any way believe that it was actually me, and I would be prepared to die and move on from this plane, knowing that I've left behind a copy of myself, not thinking I'm going to live forever.
Yeah.
But sure,
How much of your data do you already share with
I'm
Silicon Valley?
man. I'm an open book. You could. It would be so easy to replicate me as AI. They may have already done it for all I know. It'd be a very simple matter. So
That's so interesting. The idea of being able to like take your consciousness and like live forever.
But what if
And
you're trapped in some kind of hell that's in corporate
that's
control?
the one thing I
Your
worry about.
consciousness is just
Yeah.
in there.
24/7 ads played, in your brain or whatever, yeah,
You have
that's
to
that.
do work for them or you'll
All right,
disintegrate.
well, I'd
Like,
like to
I don't
change my
know.
answer.
yeah,
I'd like
I
to,
guess I
Running
know.
this.
I guess that is really tough. I don't know. I guess I always come back to I guess I'll just have to become a vampire, right? Like that's the only way that
That's
you
my
can
dream, really.
control immortality.
okay, now hear me out.
Vegan
We
vampire.
combine the AI thing, the AI
Uh-huh.
clone thing with vampires and
Hmm.
see what we get with that. I got an idea already.
There you go. That's your next
Like,
book. Make it simple. It's a vampire story.
yeah,
Right, classic Dracula, and then just
classic Dracula, but it's
load
an
of consciousness.
AI. Yeah, they reanimated this person's corpse by using an AI to replace his personality, but in order for him to maintain his life, he has to feed on human blood.
I love it.
Interesting.
Uh,
All right, go
uh,
for
Needs it
it.
for lubricant to make his system work. I don't know.
Who is going to deal with I guess everyone, if you're going to upload your consciousness somewhere, then you also have to make sure that it's constantly maintained because we know that AIs get dementia if you do
Yeah,
not maintain them. So I guess would that be the same?
we go insane.
So
It's
many
fine.
questions. I just like to know the
Yeah.
answers.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Are you going to replace your spouse with an AI partner?
No, man.
Next question, please.
Look,
Next question.
I'm
Okay.
not even going to replace my spouse with a human partner. I mean, if Kara somehow goes before I do, that's it for me. I'm
That's
done
it.
with the
You're done.
whole
You're
marriage
supposed to give
thing.
more quality time to people where you're not listening to anything you
I
said.
did listen to that. I just don't agree with a word of it because no,
Yeah, I'm going to be a recluse and screw everybody.
yeah, I'm fine with that. When he started talking about the Japanese kids who are
Yeah.
completely living with nothing but technology or whatever, I'm
Yeah.
like, sounds like heaven.
My
I would
son would be
love
on
to
that
live in
same
that.
boat. He's like, I don't
Yeah,
have to go out. I just talk to everyone online and you'll bring me food. Cool.
that's how I practically live now anyway.
I
So
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Aw.
I'm very
Everything
pasty. I'm very pale.
Yeah.
we
So I
do,
could be a vampire.
you could be.
Well,
And
you'll
we'll
be with
have
your
to,
novels, and your novels will help you feel
That's
more
right.
empathy. That's
That's
why
right.
we need novels to stay up.
yeah, I got like a lot of friends. Like
Yes.
they're
Yeah,
all
yeah.
right there on the shelf and
He
they be
even
quiet.
referred to all those characters in those books as his friends. I'm like,
Yeah.
how is that different than being friends with people online remotely?
Well,
How is it different?
I don't know. But
I'd argue
what
I'd
about
argue that
being with real
the
life people? It's different.
three-dimensional people are overrated. So are things like empathy.
I will say
Um,
I do want to subscribe to your belief system, Kevin, because it is very appealing for a number. But I do have to say that in the last like 5 years of my life, I have developed like really close friendships with people, um, mostly women actually, that I never was able to have earlier in my life. And the way that Christine's one, and they don't all live where I am. And so it is sort of a virtual thing. But the closeness that you get from interacting and getting just the support and knowing people are there if you need them, and there's just something to it. And I do think like that there is a weird connection that you get when you start having friendships with people that
all right.
like you're having a bad day and they send you a
Yes.
text and they
Allow
don't
me to
know that
ask.
you're having a bad day, but you needed it at that moment. And it just,
Allow me to ask.
I agree with Jenna.
What is the root cause of your bad day or the event that makes you need someone to relate
usually
to?
my husband.
Other human beings.
I like that you raised your hand.
Yeah,
Kevin is the reason.
the thing
No.
caught my hand. I have a question. The other human beings are the reason that you need human beings. That's my argument. So if you
Yes,
didn't have any
but
human beings, you wouldn't need any other human
I
beings.
don't know if that's the truth, though. I don't know because you can still have a bad day because and not interact with humans. You can have a bad day because, just everything goes wrong, like, technology wise, or you just wake up. Listen, like you can wake up and have weird dreams and just be in a mood. And like, the coffee maker pisses you off and the toaster pisses you off and the washing machine pisses you
Well,
off. And
that's what journals and AI are for. Just
No,
go complain to that
no.
stuff. I
You
don't
need
need
other
it's
people or else you get
it,
strange, Kevin. It's
it
just a
pulls you
proven
out of
fact
yourself.
of being
Yeah,
human.
it, usually would, I'm telling you, like before 5 years ago, I would have fully agreed. But
the
once you
older I
actually
get,
find those people and they
Yeah.
just like get you,
Yes.
man.
like they're just there. Like there is nothing better. Like you
So
just can't replace it.
all
I agree.
seriousness though, I mean, I love people and I relate really well to people. I make friends easily, so I joke a lot. But I will say this though, like, um, the the problem for me is that relating to people, and I actually talked about this on my podcast recently. Like the trouble I have in life right now is everything in my life really centers around writing. And when you're
Yeah.
talking to normal, everyday three-dimensional people, 99% of them have no idea what the hell you're talking about, and they don't know how to relate to you. And I don't like much else. Like I'm not a sports guy. I'm not into cars, and so yeah, I can talk to anybody about anything because I do have a wide range of knowledge, but eventually I'm going to start talking about publishing again, and that's when I lose everybody. So that's my
Well,
conundrum.
I guess,
That's why I do podcasts.
I will say out of my really close friend circle, like one of them is not in publishing, but she's very curious just about life in general. And so she doesn't actually care. She finds it very interesting to talk
Yeah.
about, things, but you do need to find those people. I
Yeah.
will say this is where writers groups sometimes help because I think all of the people that I have really gotten close with over the last 5 years have been writers.
Yes.
And you start with but it doesn't always work. You like join a group and you might get one and you might get another, and it's a slow process, but but you do find your people in that way. And, it starts, I guess, if you're looking for a group, you start with the people involved in the things you're interested in. So you would start with writers, but then it develops beyond writing, and then it becomes deeper, and then it becomes more profound. And then you realize that you have these people in your lives that you wouldn't know what to do with if they weren't there anymore.
Yeah,
So,
I absolutely agree with that. And writers are the nicest people. They're the most supportive.
Some of us.
Yeah, most of us.
Some of you guys.
We
so
are.
if
We're
you're
like
listening and you
cheerleaders.
want to befriend a curmudgeonly Kevin, please send him an email. He is looking for writer friends.
Oh man. With that, I guess we better talk about who is up next week. Up next week, it's Andrew Gooley from the Strand magazine. Andrew is one of the biggest boosters of the mystery genre, and he's going to be talking to us next week about some new Fleming stories. So up next week, it's Andrew Gooley. If you'd like to be notified as soon as new episodes publish, make sure you go to writersinc.com and sign up now. We'll see you next episode, and have a great week of writing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Writers Inc. Access the show notes and leave a comment at writersincpodcast.com.